Jewish Ancestor is a project that we have been coordinating for a very long time, and its beginnings are somewhat murky for me, as many of these projects have been emerging from a lot of neurological injury. And for all of us, these projects are emerging from a lot of neurological injury. So when we began to work with this space, Jewish Ancestor, we were asking the question from the beginning, who are my Jewish ancestors? Maybe I might have just one Jewish ancestor. How do I connect with my sense of connectivity? Because when you are sustaining severe neurological injuries, you are disconnected from your connection functions. We talk about being connected or being disconnected in a particular kind of circumstance. But the very function of connectability can be destroyed. And that's a different thing to try to describe. As we have been doing research that most others don't want us to do, won't allow us to do, get angry at us for doing, commit various acts of violence to prevent, it becomes increasingly clear to us why we have encountered so many challenges when trying to connect with Jewish spiritual communities. And still now, so many people in our network, and myself and my loved ones included, are finding that Jewish communities are so affected by the intersections we've been describing, even if they don't realize it, especially when they don't realize it. We don't know if it's even possible to root ourselves in Jewishness. What is Jewishness? Is it what has been passed down through the family when our families are so extremely traumatized multi-generationally that what we have lost is this it's really a wound for your family not to be able to remember your family. And individuals get cut off from family structures, community structures, and so many people don't even understand what's happening while that's going on. But when we're talking about Jewishness and we're talking about we thought that we were reaching towards our community, our family structures in some way, our ancestry. And we found out that what was there was actually a lot of layers of misdirection and lies we have been told about our own histories. And very manipulative and disruptive techniques that are used to interrupt people who start to kind of explore these things. And Jewish Ancestor, the way that we have been organizing it from the beginning, makes more and more sense in the context of this research that has to be absorbed in such great detail, and one has to try to find primary sources, and if one is too disabled to reach the primary sources, we have to have a totally different collective science for evaluating our sources of information. And in developing that collective science, where what has been called science has been subjecting us to so much violence, it can be about Jews and Jewishness. But it's not only about Jews and Jewishness, it's about how all of us are reaching for our ancestry in these different ways. The multi-faith space on Telegram Messenger, Jewish Ancestor, is a place where we have been building structures that allow us to feel safe in a sacred place, to express ourselves spiritually without worrying that we will be harmed for what we say. Because when people are repairing from neurological injuries, from life-threatening experiences, from being tortured to death over and over again for years or decades, what is most immediately necessary is that they be allowed and supported to say what they need to say to start the conversations that they need to have, with the knowledge that that is going to take some time and requires support in group spaces and from the community, from those one is close to, and for many people who don't have anyone that they are close to be building trust, to be building relationship resonance, so that there can be increased verbal access. If we do not do this, if this is not prioritized, you must not expect that living being to regain sufficient verbal access for all of us to be able to communicate. And that's one of the things that we are finding in Jewish communities. When we're talking about the Khazarian Mafia, we have a term that can mean a lot of things, and a lot of people are saying a lot of things about it. But this is a crucial touch point for us to describe the infrastructural changes and influences that we have had to catalog and document and stay really in contact with in order to be able to neurologically apprehend the real situations of our environments for the survival of our physical bodies. The only way for survivors in these situations to be able to gradually come into a broader collective conversation about what's actually happening is to have the safe space to start the conversations in the ways that we need to, and know that we're in an environment that is going to provide caring and consistency in the patience and respect with which people respond to the messages we send, so that then whatever way we started, we can unfold that repairing neurology, so that more and more over time, we will be able to speak one another's languages of clarity and respect. We are able to speak one another's languages where expressing ourselves in one way might really harm certain people because of the violence they have been through, the violence they've been sensitized to. And survivors with severe neurological injury can only respect one another with words when we have the neurological repair resourcing to be able to build those neurological structures after they've been wiped out by social violence. It is only the opposite of social violence that can repair the effects of social violence. And many people get very scared and frustrated when they don't see communications or efforts succeeding, where what we all have to remember is that there must first be sufficient supported space and supported social interactions for a person to be able to neurologically make the expressions that would represent specific this respectful phrasing, this particular way of saying something that eases communications. Survivors of neurological injuries can only do that if there is sufficient support in the environment to let them repair what they need to repair, be in relationship in a caring, respectful vibration with other beings that one wishes to support. But one cannot go through that process if we are targeted too quickly by whatever kinds of aggression or retaliation or even simple misunderstandings that occur in our communities, where everybody is experiencing very severe trauma in ways that many people will never call severe trauma, but it's still happening, and we still have to address the effects of it in all of our environments. And when that is going on, we need to be aware enough of the interstitial elements of our experiences so that we don't think that we are doomed when we're not doomed, because that's a trafficking trick. And traffickers really like to convince us that it is not possible to more fully understand and respect someone's necessary language. There are a lot of efforts out there going on to distract and scare us with those feelings. We thought it was very interesting that there were certain kinds of bot activities that increased pretty much immediately when we started mentioning the Khazarian Mafia in our stuff. There are a lot of interesting psyops going on about the Khazarian Mafia, which you may think means one particular thing, and then you will find it means a dozen other things. And when we're navigating this kind of ocean of complex, interrelated meaning, the experience of meaning, successful communications require that we ensure neurological facility for functions of connectivity. And that's what we're describing. In my sense of Jewishness, there is deeply sacred etymology that is about how matter comes into being. And that has been sacred for me and for others in groups where we have been discussing these subjects. Are we Jewish? Aren't we Jewish? Am I Jewish? If I am hurt because I'm Jewish, should I say something about it? But if I'm being hurt in the opposite way that another Jewish person is being hurt, then should they talk about it, but I should not say what I am saying? What happens if people come into our environments and cause harm specifically to point us at one another and get us to fight about it instead of secure a gradual process of repair together? That would be very effective at preventing reparative dialogue, wouldn't it? I think what we have to describe of Jewishness is really changing. I think how we honor Jewishness must really change, because all of the environments that we tried to reach to honor Jewishness have been terribly affected by the intersections that we're documenting, and they have not been able to dialogue with us, even for the safety of our community members in their midst. It has not been possible. When we're talking about and researching this phrase, the Khazarian Mafia, this matters a lot. The kinds of hardship and severe experiencing that Jewish communities are describing, whether or not they understand where it's connected to certain intersections. So many people are talking about it. And they said, well, what can we do? Because generally they see it as hopeless. So when we come to talk to them, they're not able to release their feelings of hopelessness on the basis of our small communications, because they are surrounded by much more powerful communications. And in many of those places, if somebody said Khazarian Mafia to somebody, they will go, oh, conspiracy theorists. Which unfortunately now is another way of saying some of our best historians. This is the basis of many unnecessary conflicts. And the degree to which we become skilled at breathing in our bodies and taking a small step back to feel what is the conflict. And can we release it? Because if we can't, we know it's a trap. Because this is how those powerful influences prefer to engage in population entrapment. And those of us with more direct experience being sex trafficked wish to call out the many relationships between these various elements that are the only way that people in your community can be sex trafficked. It's not possible to traffic us if we are in steady, consistent, caring conversations. And the fact that communities don't know how to do this, and the fact that Jewish spiritual communities don't know how to do this, must deeply matter to us. We must care enough for one another to choose to gently, patiently, respectfully act on it in a way that restores our sense of collective dignity and honorable behavior, where those have too extensively gone missing. And we all need them in order to properly repair our communications, our physiology, and our living bodies. Our etymology is what we are co-creating and repairing together. We're recovering our connectivity to what is sacred in all of us and emergent into physical reality. Power factions like the ones we've been discussing throughout the ages have sought to obscure or restrict knowledge about how physical creation is so imminently emergent for all of our bodies. It is a tremendous magic. And it's you, and you're it. And it may be challenging to navigate all of this, but it is why Jewish Ancestor exists. And the more we travel through our very different experiences of it, the story of all of us is being synthesized while we're living it and sharing with one another and speaking what we have been prevented from speaking, so that we all have an opportunity to learn to understand languages that what does it even mean for people to not want us to speak certain languages? We don't need to unpack that this morning, but it's super relevant. You, as a living being, have languages that are yours. And if you are traumatized, which on this planet I suspect you are, or at least have been, as we all move through our recovery processes, you must speak your language. You must root your language. You must stabilize your language. And it's not necessarily just one language. It's yours. It's your complex of language access. And as a complex, beautiful, powerful living being, when you root your languaging first and you continue to tend to it as a sacred garden, it will completely change all of your communications, verbal and nonverbal, across your entire lifespan. And we know this because if we had not been working on it, many of us would not have a current lifespan to be participating with. I'm really grateful for these improvisational movements. My body feels awake and alive. And we're making really amazing progress. So we're going to keep doing that.